they'll find her. Yeah, I suppose they will. Unless they don't, that is. And then, well, that little girl just won't be found. She'll be up there all alone, hurt, maybe scared, waiting and waiting, hoping. She'll be thinking, someone will save me. Today on the Comic Book Report, Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King and Andy Kubert from DC Comics. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I am back in the world of DC Comics, checking out a standard size hardcover for a Superman story I have wanted to read for some time. And a huge thank you to Jake from The Brave and the Boys for sending over this copy just because he's a great guy. I really just want to say a heartfelt thank you for this. This was a real blast. I'm a huge fan of Tom King, and this Superman story is frankly one that will live in my head rent-free for some time. So again, thank you to Jake, and also I wanted to shout out our channel sponsor, as always, Panelbound Comics. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check them out. You can find a link to them in the video description, and if you see anything on that site you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The comics in this volume were written by Tom King and illustrated by Andy Kubert. The comics in this volume were published by DC Comics beginning in 2019. As far as what this includes, it collects Superman Up in the Sky, issues 1 through 6. And finally, this is a standard size hardcover edition with nice matte print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 176 pages. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first dedicated look at the front dust jacket cover for today's standard size edition from DC Comics. We have an awesome, just Superman pose here on the front. We have some action stuff happening behind him. We have that Superman font just coming right off the page there and up in the sky, of course, along with the creators and the DC Comics logo up top. I should note, while this is a standard hardcover, the deluxe edition oversized hardcover came out recently from DC Comics. But back to today's collection, we do have the spine here. We have this kind of bubbled Superman logo. I really like it. It spells out Superman and then the DC logo at the bottom. And we have the creators really small above and below the R. I think that this is a really fun and kind of modern way to design a spine. I just think it really works for me. I was struck by it and I think about it often. Now on the back cover, we have a cool alien scene with Superman flying above it all. We have a blurb about the collection, pricing information, things like that. All pretty standard stuff for a back dust jacket cover, but I really like the layout. I think that the graphic design for this is really on point. But yeah, just really like it. Really, really good. I love seeing some of the art we get on the back cover. It's a little bit indicative of what we can expect in the work itself. And now I want to spend one more minute on the exteriors here. We'll examine the dust jacket in greater detail. I'll go ahead and remove it, and in a moment I'll spread it. You'll see the interior flaps as well and everything we have printed on those. And then after that we will transition over to the hardback book itself and examine that art. But yeah, I like to do this just so you can see a bit of every angle for these collections and what you can expect if you want to pick up this exact edition or format. As we transition though from that physical dust jacket to the hardback book itself, I'm happy to say we have that kind of bubbled Superman lettering retained on the hardback. It's blown up, of course, and behind it this time we have two different images of Superman, one on the front and back cover respectively. The spine of the hardback book itself is kind of a field of white with some details about the book, like the title, things like that. I really like this. I think the design work here is also quite nice. I love whenever we get art printed on hardback books themselves. Just a great way for bonus material. And now for all you prospective collectors out there, a quick look at this book's binding. So as I mentioned, it does appear to be a glued binding, and while my pages didn't lay down perfectly flat, I really don't have a ton of complaints about the binding. It's perhaps a little bit tight, there's maybe a little bit of gutter loss, but these pages aren't going anywhere, and overall, I was really happy with it. But again, you'll see a little more of that too as I flip through. Okay, and as we make our way into today's collection, we do have some end pages, a title page, kind of creator breakdown page, publication information page, and then we basically jump right into the story. So as I mentioned earlier in this video, it is a 6-issue mini-series here, broken up into a lot of little, I'm going to call them vignettes. We basically have 1 to 2 little mini-stories in each issue, for a total of maybe 12 or 13-ish by the end. What these are, it kind of reminds me of the 12 labors of Hercules, I believe, from mythology, if I'm not mistaken. It's basically Superman's tests, and what are they testing him for? Essentially, this is a story of a girl who is abducted, a little girl from Earth who's abducted and taken deep into space to the other side of the universe, as it turns out. No one can find her, not the Green Lantern Corps, not any other interdimensional or space-based heroes. She is just gone without a trace. We know her favorite superhero was Superman, and he basically in the early issue debates the ethics of leaving everything for the sake of going after this one girl. And he talks to some of the most important people in his life, like Batman, like Lois, and his own father, Pa Kent. All of which kind of try to be a good sounding board for him as he weighs out the decision. Ultimately, when he's talking to his father, it makes it sound like he is deciding to stay because he can't justify who might die or be hurt if he leaves Earth unprotected and he's away for only who knows how long. But essentially, his father points out, but if you don't save her, who will? What if she's always out there just hoping and believing that someday you'll come for her? Because that's what you embody. That's what Superman embodies, this kind of hope, this light in the dark who will never give up. And ultimately, after talking with his dad, he is resolved to leave and go venture into the stars as far as it takes, as long as it takes, to find this lost girl. From there, we have the rest of this series. As I said, we have these sequence of, I'm going to call them the labors of Superman, but essentially these tests that really just see how much he is committed to his mission of finding her, for going after the one. Along the way, he's tested physically, psychologically, and just about in every way you can think of. I'm going to kind of scattershot here. I'm not going to talk about each and every trial that he undergoes. Suffice it to say, it is pretty comprehensive, and I enjoyed it. There's one trial where he basically sees Lois Lane, the love of his life, tortured or killed in every way possible, and just makes him so worried and want to forsake the mission to go back home to her to ensure her safety. We have another one where he's kind of stripped of his powers, or he's either that or battling someone equally powered, and he's in a boxing match for as long as he can go. And he seems outmatched, and yet his sheer willpower won't allow him to fail. We have one that's kind of a flashback to when he raced against the Flash around the world. We have another one that's basically trying to convince these alien races to allow him passage or to give him the information he needs. We even have a point toward the end where he brokers with Darkseid to get the information. Essentially, he is playing a bit of interstellar detective, trying to figure out where she is. He chases down every possible lead he can, and as he gets closer and closer, these tests get more and more daunting. We haven't neared the resolution as well. We have a moment where he is split between his Superman persona and his Clark Kent persona, and they kind of battle to see whose kind of identity is more important, or what do they need, and ultimately they come back together to continue the mission. I really love these things. The Darkseid labor in particular was definitely noteworthy because Darkseid basically, I believe, orders him to kill someone, and he either has to follow through with it and corrupt his moral code of no killing, or corrupt his code of breaking his word. And it's this really interesting ethical dilemma, and they actually leave it initially where you're not sure exactly what happened, but they do tag back up on it at the end in a way that I enjoyed. And Superman basically reasons either way Darkseid breaks Superman, but he's willing to let that happen for the sake of finding this girl. Of course, it's Superman, so he lies and doesn't kill this person, and of course I knew that. But it's just really interesting, and there's a lot of kind of existential or character moments where we find out what is in Superman. Where does he get this grit? What does he stand for? Again, what are the lengths to which he is willing to go. Along the way as well, of course, we do get some little inklings about who this little girl is, who is a completely random, anonymous girl. We find out that she is an orphan that doesn't really have many people in her life who loves her, but she looks up to Superman. She knows who Superman is, and she hopes that he is going to save her. But yeah, we have a couple different labors. Like I said, another one I didn't mention that was quite good was Sergeant Rock, I believe. He's like teleported back to, I guess, World War II or whenever that series takes place. And he is depowered. Clark Kent, he has no idea why he's there. And then halfway through this battle, he remembers he's Superman. And that's a really cool little story. And so what I like about this miniseries, in addition to just having a really great through line of who is Superman, what does it take, what is in this man that allows him to keep soldiering on for the good of the one. And I really like the examination of that, but I also like the approach that we have all of these little mini stories, these short stories, these vignettes, and they're kind of these little one-off Superman mini adventures, but they all serve that central theme, central purpose, and ultimately central plot line. I think that this is really deceptively simple. I think it looks like a simple premise that is just expertly executed. There's a lot of complexity here, even morally, and with that character. Again, if you would ever like to see a great character study on Superman, I think look no further. This is absolutely fantastic. I've read other Superman-based stories that have vignette kind of feels, like Superman American Alien springs to mind from Max Landis. That was also quite good. But yeah, this story's really great. And ultimately the story resolves with him, of course, finding the little girl after being unwilling to forsake his mission. He saves her, and then the last issue is him returning back to Earth across the universe with her to deliver her back home or back to Earth safely. Along the way, she asks questions about his adventures. This is where we run into that character he was supposed to murder that he didn't, of course, and they get to meet and greet, and she asks him things about who he is or what he did or what have you. And at the very end of the story, he lands back down on Earth and makes sure she's delivered somewhere safely. And he said, "Do you have any more questions for me?" And she says something like, "I bet you're wondering the question I didn't ask, which is why you came. But that's a silly question, and I didn't need to ask it. It's because you're Superman." And yeah, no dry eye in the house over here. I loved that moment. I think it perfectly distilled, and really this whole work in general, it perfectly distilled what makes Superman so great to me. The art throughout this by Andy Kubert as well is absolutely phenomenal. I'm obviously a fan of Kubert from some of his other stuff I've reviewed on the channel, but here we have an exceptional take on Superman and some of the other DC Comics mainstays. Really fun stuff. There's even a moment where he saves everyone back on Earth kind of inadvertently, which I liked. He basically topples the scheme of the person that kidnapped her, and it was supposed to be just this little blip, and it ended up being this huge intergalactic struggle. And again, Superman saves it all by saving her, and it just worked really well done here. At the back of the collection, as you've seen, we had some cover art, variant cover art kind of stuff. We had some sketch work, behind the scenes art by way of extras, and that really does it for Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King and Andy Kubert from DC Comics. Again, this is the standard size hardcover. They also recently released an oversized hardcover deluxe edition for this work. So if this looks interesting to you, you can try to track down this format, or you can upgrade to that deluxe edition. They might still have it at the channel sponsor, Panel Bound Comics, so check that out with the link in the description. And I think all that's left to do now is to give this book a grade. For easily one of the best character studies of my favorite Man of Steel, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King and Andy Kubert from DC Comics an A-. I would personally consider this one of the modern Superman great stories. I would consider it a must-read, and frankly, after enjoying this copy, I'm considering upgrading to the deluxe edition because wow, was this a beautiful read. We had action, we had heartwarming moments, we had gorgeous art throughout from, again, Kubert here, and absolutely, this should be on every Superman fan's shelf. Cannot speak highly enough about it. What a joy. A huge thank you again to Jake from Brave and the Boys for sending over this copy just because he's a great friend. And of course, a thank you to each and every one of you for making this journey today with me. In the comments section, let me know if you've read Superman Up in the Sky, or if after watching my review, you're curious to read it for yourself. Also, let me know if you have any other great Tom King recommendations or Andy Kubert recommendations. Always in the market for a good new read. And until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone. Bye.